Welcome to Talking Albums. I'm John McDonald. In the summer of 2021, I sat down with Michelle and Jay of Paragon Cause. They had just released the album Autopilot, their second during the COVID days. We spoke about their music and some special albums. Here's our conversation. Thank you for doing this.
Our pleasure. We love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You've really been busy since the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We haven't stopped.
Well, oddly enough, I think we actually released 2 albums.
We did.
I think because I you know how it is. Time seems all messed up right now, but I think the What We Started album, we were planning to release that. We had a whole tour set up, and then the pandemic hit, and we had to cancel everything. But we decided to still go ahead and release it. And then right before the pandemic started, we were recording our most recent album in that December. So it was like, what's that, December 2019?
Yeah,
I get so confused.
Yeah.
And then January, February, March 2020, we were going to start playing live and getting the What We Started out, but then the pandemic happened. So that got canceled, but we still released it. And then we just released this new album. So yeah, definitely busy.
How would you actually describe your music?
Oh, that's like the hardest question I find for me, like when people ask me that, because, you know, if I look at all of our discography and all of our songs, there's no, you know, you can listen and you know it's us, but, you know, we're not afraid to do anything. So it's not whatever instrumentation or writing a song that's more acoustic or whatever. We're not afraid of anything. So a lot of it's based on emotion for me. So like my side, I do the majority of the lyrics and melody writing, and it's going to be based on experiences and my interpretation of the world and how I'm feeling. And so who knows how that's going to come out in a song.
Yeah, like I think personally, and I think Suna Rose said the same thing. He said, he once we were sitting here and he said, so who are you guys? Who is Paragon Cause? Mm-hmm. And he asked us that, and we just kind of looked at each other going, we don't know. But at the same time, when we started to talk to him, because we really kind of delved into it with him, it was an interesting conversation. In the end, I think it's all about the voice in the words. And so what keeps our songs stable and keeps who we are as us, I think, is Michelle's voice and the way she sings and the way she talks and tells her stories. And then I think what Paragon Cause is we're almost like a soundtrack. And we create this music for what the story she's telling is, whether it be using 50s guitar rock kind of sounds, using synthesizers. So I think realistically, I always kind of think of ourselves as almost like soundtrack makers, and the soundtrack is to her words and to her voice. When I think about it that way, I think that really encapsulates what we do and why we have so many different sounds and styles on our music, is because we just try to bring out the words and the emotion to those words the best way possible through the music. And we'll do it by any means necessary.
We should mention that Suna Rose is with the Ravenettes.
Yeah, with
yes.
with the Ravenettes, and he's incredible. He's kind of the third member, right? He's our you know, he produced the last 3 albums. He's like our George Martin, you know. Not saying we're the Beatles or anything, but maybe someday.
Someday, yeah.
But he's our George Martin. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have found our sound. I don't think we would have probably learned a lot slower. But he taught us a lot, and he's worked with some incredible musicians, and he learned from a guy named Richard Gottner, who wrote the song "My Boyfriend's Back" and all of these crazy, you know, classic iconic songs in the 60s. And so Suna Rose passes that and his information on to us, and we learned so much from him, and he's just a motivation because the Ravenettes are incredible. Yeah.
Well, he, you know, it just, I think that's what fueled some of my confidence, is that he invested in us. You know, it wasn't just, oh, we're going to make this song. It was afterwards, and the communicating back and forth and texting and keeping each other motivated and going and introducing you to different contacts and ideas. And he wants to see your success.
I suppose it pushes you to not necessarily try a bit harder, but explore more.
Definitely.
Yes.
Because that little bit of pressure, knowing that you want to impress him. Every time he shows up, we really, really want to impress him. And we want him to leave with a smile on his face, because we know now his cues when he gets excited, when he loves a song. The first time we recorded together, there'd be a few times where we're playing and he would get really quiet. And we're like, oh, damn, he hates this. But then we realize that when he's quiet, he's thinking and working and doing stuff, and he loves it. And when he gets quiet, we know right away he's got something big coming. So
I always look to his feet, because I'll see his foot tapping on the ground.
Yeah, so that's
always a good sign.
Always a good sign. And he's an incredible artist. Like,
He can do anything.
It was the first time I ever really realized what a professional artist is. When I saw him work and saw his ability to come up with ideas and his creativity, you don't realize it. Like, I've worked around a lot of indie bands and worked with a lot of great artists, but I've never worked with a professional like him. And like, you could tell. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Like, you could tell the guy's a musical genius.
He was always waiting for us, right? Like he's always ready. Always ready. He's like, give me something else. Give me something else. Yeah. And so it forces you to like,
we work really fast with him. We record every song we've ever recorded was done within 3 hours.
Yeah.
3 to 4 hours. Every song.
From like start to finish. Like just
usually 2 a day. On the new album, every song 2 a day. Except the first day. We did 2 to play on the new album, which is the first song. That was the first song we recorded. And we took about 5 hours to do it because it was just getting back. We haven't seen each other for a year and a half. So it was getting back into it.
So shall we talk about some albums?
Yeah, of course.
Please.
You submitted a list to me, and I'll remind you.
Thank you. How kind of you.
which you chose. Now, a go-to album, one that you'll always return to. We mentioned the Ravenettes.
Yeah. So me and Michelle sat down and listened to a few Ravenettes albums to try to come up with this answer because it had to be the Ravenettes. At least for me, we both have different opinions, but the album Observator by the Ravenettes, I think the thing about it is it's really chill. It has like the song Dancing in the Streets. It has Hit Me and I'm Down. And it has the song Observator. It's a really beautiful album. Mm-hmm. And it's a great nighttime album. It's a great chill album, but there's a lot of emotion and darkness in it. It's beautiful.
Definitely when I didn't know who the Ravenettes were before Jay introduced me. And so, I went through their whole, all the records that Jamie had in his collection. And so I'm like, I think it may have had those early influences on me, like listening to it and seeing, what else is out there and how to convey different emotions. And I don't know.
We've performed the song The Enemy a few times, which is really cute. And the lyrics in it, it's like the song, thinking of the lyrics are just beautiful. You make me feel like I'm the enemy. And it really speaks to you when you listen to that album. It takes you to another place. And I think it's personally, a lot of people say Lust, Lust, Lust is the best Ravenettes album. And we will always say that's one of our most influential albums for our sound because that's what got us into Meeting Soon and stuff. But I still think Observator is probably his best songwriting because it really takes you to another place. But it's very, very dark. Like the actual song Observator, flowers in the daytime, Lucifer at night, he sings. This woman said I'm torn between two lives. And so just all these words and the things he said. And when he was here, we actually listened to some songs on that album, and it was very, very interesting. He loves that album, but I feel like he must have written it from a dark place because you can tell
definitely
he hears it and he kind of gets very quiet when it was playing.
He's definitely more reserved.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but it's a beautiful album. I tell everybody, put it on in the dark and just listen to it. It's really very beautiful.
Now, an album that more people should know about, Reaching by the Diggable Planet.
Oh, yes. So that's like my go-to, like to introducing to people. Like I sometimes have, times where I want to throw on some music that, that can't have anything offensive in it or bad words and that sort of thing. So like, the 5 minutes at the end of the school day or something like that. And that's what I throw on. And people are just like, especially teenagers, they're blown away. Like, what is this? They find it so good. And then people that are in their 20s and 30s, they've never heard of it. And they're just like, they're almost angry. Like, why have I never been introduced to this? Because it's so good. It's just the way it's produced and just, hearing rhymes like that don't follow that annoying cadence that you hear in every single hip hop song now. It's its own thing. It's so creative.
I don't even know. It's like the jazz of hip hop. They kind of took what Tribe Called Quest were doing, but made it a little bit more cool, so to speak, right? Yeah. A little bit more like smoky, dark New York club or Chicago club on jazz night. Yeah. And there's this feel in it, but it's also, there's a lot of really powerful words in it and lyrics and the way that they rap, there's 3 of them and there's the 2 men and a woman. And I still say the woman's name is Butterfly. She is one of my favorite rappers of all time. I hate saying female rappers, but she's a female and she doesn't get credit within that world of female rappers, and she should. You listen to that album and songs like Cool Like That and Nickel Bag of Funk and Jimmy Diggin' Cats, like all these songs that are just so New York is red hot. Like it's so cool. Like it's one of the coolest albums you'll ever hear. And if you want to introduce someone to hip hop or get introduced to hip hop, particularly older style hip hop, that's the album.
Yep.
That is the album to start with. There's not a bad moment on that album. And even the way they rhyme, they kind of like, it's almost like whispered rhymes.
Just so much more musical too, though, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just not. Yes.
Everybody should know about it. It irritates me that people don't know about it. And the band, they only released 2 albums. Their second album was very, very cool, much more political, but still really cool.
An album that stands the test of time. Your choice was Siamese Dream by the Smashing Pumpkins.
I chose that one mainly because I was thinking a lot about it recently when you asked that question. And I sometimes get these old albums in my head and start thinking about them, particularly albums that have just disappeared and out of my mind and I haven't listened to in a while. And I'm sure, Michelle, you probably have a different one. But there's a lot of albums I feel has obviously stood the test of time. There's all these albums from the 60s and 70s. I like a lot of 70s music, a lot of 80s music, and a lot of 90s music. But when I think about an album that every time I go back and listen to, I'm always like blown away how I missed the song or I missed parts. I'm like, this is way better than I realized. And when I was in high school, Siamese Dream came out, and who didn't want to learn how to play the riff from Today? Or who didn't want to impress people and play Disarm and stuff like that. But then as I got older and I started listening to it, all these crazy songs that I never really paid attention to, I realized that they're masterpieces. Like the song Mayonnaise is a masterpiece and it's incredible. It's beautiful. And so I guess when I really thought about a song that stands the test of time or an album that stands the test of time, I was like, one that always just surprises me. And that's one of those ones that always surprise me. I think I would say that, to be honest, about albums like Nevermind by Nirvana too. Like it has the hits, but then when you actually go back and you start to fall in love with songs that you didn't fall in love with in the past, that's kind of why I picked Siamese Dream. And it's not my favorite album of all time, not even close. But it really does just stand the test of time, and I think it will for a long time. And Billy Corgan is not right about many things, but I think it is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I'd hate to tell him that to his face, but...
Now, you just mentioned there that when you go back and re-listen, the one thing that I've always wondered as a musician, when you hear a song for the first time, can you hear the song or do you start dissecting? And
I think me and Michelle have a lot of we have a lot of background in music theory and music training. Michelle more so than I, so we do that. But we often will sometimes we listen to things with an open mind, like 100%. But when we don't like a song, let me just say this: if we love a song, we'll figure out why.
Yeah.
If we hate a song, we'll also figure out why.
Yeah.
But if a song is just a good song in the middle, we usually don't really talk about it or dissect it too much. But we sometimes like to dissect the worst just to see why, what makes it so bad and what's annoying about it. And it's just our opinions, and we disagree on certain songs. But the same goes for the best songs. We'll really like to dissect it. And sometimes we'll talk sometimes about like bands like the Mamas and the Papas, or even, what was the one we wee talking about recently? A Bee Gees song. I forget which song it was.
Oh, goodness.
Not More Than a Woman.
No.
Tragedy. It was off, sounded like...
I was literally playing a piano. I can't remember.
No, it is More Than a Woman.
Oh.
I think.
No, it's not.
I don't know.
It's not.
But what makes that song? Like, why is the hook? Why does that song draw you in so much? And we'll sit and we'll dissect it and we'll be like, what is it? Or when we were recording our new album, I remember we sat and listened to Bananarama, Cruel Summer. And we're like, what is it about that song that makes it so
But I like
cool?
to look at I have the piano music for it. And I like to see it's because every time he's saying a word, he's always coming in before the beat. And so it naturally has this, feeling of the song, just like keep on going. And how do different bands achieve that, right? Like making a song seem like it's speeding up, but it's not, right? There's these little techniques and skills, and that's the stuff that I find fascinating. I say picking apart a song, it's never from like a negative point of view. Like, I remember being in university, and when you're picking apart a song, like, and the professors are talking about it, it's they're doing it with excitement. Like, look what they did here, and then they discovered this, and all these little happy accidents that happen because of it. And
but we'll also sit back, like one of our favorite albums just to put on and like not dissect, but just let it take over is, and I introduced this album to Michelle, is Sex Packets by Digital Underground. So there's a song on it called Freaks of the Industry, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
And we don't even, it's not you to dissect it. You just put that on and you can just close your eyes and get taken away to another dimension.
You just disappear.
You just disappear. So we can do both. We can dissect, or we can just get lost in the sounds and let whatever that artist did, let them take over.
Yeah.
I asked you to listen to an album of my choice.
Yes.
And this is the first album that I bought on my very first visit to England. I remember going in on Oxford Street, and I think it was £3.99, and it was a cassette from 1982, Happy Families, and it's from Blancmange. What did you think?
Well, I'll say this already. I'm going to listen to it again.
Absolutely.
I really liked it. And I put it on as we were just kind of chilling, making coffee, because I don't want to get too into analyzing it. So we want to just chill and have it in the background and listen. And right away, I remember I'm walking around and I'm like, wow, like either these guys and girls, I don't know who's in the band, were influenced by David Byrne, or David Byrne's influenced by them. But I could definitely, in a few songs, I think the second song, what I loved was, I'm like, okay, LCD Sound System is obviously a fan of this band.
Yeah,
because that second song is like, that is LCD Sounds. Like he took some of that and went with it. And then of course there's a little bit of the Talking Heads in it as well. But it's more British, like is the only way. They must be British. And just the way they were using their synthesizers and stuff, I found it very modern sounding.
That's what I was saying. I'm like, if you would have told me to guess the year,
yeah, I would have said it's a new band that are retro.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of surprised at how modern it sounded. And I got about 3/4 through the album, I think, because I think we had to go somewhere. But even with that, I would say the second song of the album was my favorite. But I don't remember the name of it, but the first song was also very cool. But I love, right away, I remember I hit play and I'm like, I'm going to like this within 5 seconds.
It was an easy...
I knew I was going to like it. And so the drumming, the sounds of the drums and stuff on it were very cool. Like it's I'm going to have to listen to it a few more times to really dive in, but it was a good choice.
Try to guess what instruments they used.
Yeah.
But synthesizers.
I'm glad that I've introduced you to
Yeah,
that.
I love it.
I love when that happens.
That's
I love
great.
when that. We'll go back, and I love discovering these late 70s, early 80s bands that you overlooked. Like we never knew about the band Suicide, and that's a really cool band from the 70s and 80s. I was impressed with them. There's some crazy stuff they do, but man, it's cool. Very cool.
You have to like, with the 80s, you gotta siphon through a bit, because there's a lot of...
But there's also a lot of stuff that I didn't like at the time.
There's a lot of bad.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of bad all the time. But
True, that you have a good point. Okay.
But at the same time, like I'll admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong about Tears for Fears. They're amazing. They're unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was totally wrong about A Flock of Seagulls.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of makes fun of A Flock of Seagulls, but I don't think anyone really goes and listens, because damn, they are good.
Oh, the guitar lines are just like...
It's incredible.
Meticulous.
Incredible. The guitar, Paul Reynolds, the guitar player, he's an icon. And how is he not more known in the guitar world?
He was like 17 or something when he was doing...
But I was wrong. I thought they were a cheesy 80s band. And no, you go back and you listen to them. That's why we did a cover of one of their songs and kind of fell in love and rediscovered them.
Well, thank you very much for doing this.
Thanks.
Our pleasure.
Super fun.